The offensive line is a group of players that frankly don't get talked about enough in football. And when they do get talked about, it often is surrounded by negativity. In today's video and subsequent videos, I hope to break down the 49ers offensive line a little bit more deeply. In this video, we'll focus on the Niners offensive philosophy and how that specifically affects the offensive line. And in subsequent videos, I hope to break down each position individually. But before we jump into today's video, which focuses on the offensive line's philosophy and what the Niners actually do on the offensive side of the ball, I want to take this time out to thank the request of today's video, Omnion12, and sorry if I butchered that name, I'm terrible with names, but if you guys ever have a request, go ahead and leave it down below and I'll definitely see if I'll be able to make a video about it. So with that out of the way, it's time to dive a little bit deeper into the Niners offensive line. And we need to start with their offensive line coach, Chris Foerster, and his background so we understand the foundational piece of the offensive line, which is their coach. Chris Foerster has an extremely long NFL career that includes 2 stints with the Niners dating back to 2008. So I'm going to go ahead and try to break down some of his highlights in his career and what you expect out of him as a coach. When examining Chris Foerster's career, it becomes obvious that he's one of the greatest offensive line coaches across the entire NFL. Let's look at Foerster's first gig as an offensive line coach and assistant head coach for the Baltimore Ravens from 2005 to 2007. Perhaps Foerster's biggest accomplishment during this period was the future Pro Football Hall of Fame inductee Jonathan Ogden. During his time with Foerster, he made the Pro Bowl in all 3 seasons. Furthermore, in 2007, running back Willis McGahee rushed for 1,207 yards, which was the second highest total across his entire career. He also earned a Pro Bowl trip. And I'm highlighting the running backs here because often the offensive line is crucial for running back success. Furthermore, in 2006, the Ravens offensive team set team records for fewest sacks allowed, 17, and most wins in the season, 13 with Foerster. Foerster then went on to join San Francisco for the first time and did great things, helping Frank Gore rush for 1,120 yards, his 4th consecutive 1,000-yard season, and also helped Gore set a career high of 10 rushing touchdowns this season. He was selected to the Pro Bowl that season. After his time with the Niners, Foerster bounced around a little bit, but in 2012, he found his way onto Kyle Shanahan's offense in Washington, and he led a unit that helped rush for 2,709 yards. That was a team record. Morris, the running back of that team, set a single season team high rushing yards with 1,613. During this period, Foerster proved to be instrumental in another tackle's development, this time Trent Williams, who saw his first 2 of his Pro Bowl honors during this time period. Foerster then jumped around and found his way onto the Miami Dolphins, where he coached for 2 seasons from 2016 to 2017. During the 2016 season, Foerster's offensive line once again proved to be instrumental. During the last 11 games of that season, the offensive line helped the Dolphins rank 3rd in the NFL per rushing yards per game and tied for 3rd for only 13 sacks allowed. This was a team that was awful before Foerster got there on the offensive line. Foerster was then released from the Miami Dolphins mainly due to a personal conduct issue, which if you guys are interested, you can go ahead and search that video. I'm not going to get into it too much here, but the Niners, despite having this personal conduct issue, because of his connection with Kyle Shanahan, Shanahan brought in Foerster, and the Niners haven't looked back since because they've been largely productive with him. For instance, last year, the Niners were top 10 in both pass blocking and run blocking grades according to Pro Football Focus. The only other teams to have accomplished that were the Eagles, Falcons, and Ravens. So now that we understand Chris Foerster is one of the best offensive line coaches across the entire league, which is highlighted by Hall of Fame players and Pro Bowl players all across his time, coupled with having some of the best efficiencies for both pass and run blocking. We can now dive into the 49ers' core concepts, both on their run and pass side of the ball. This will help us to understand what exactly the offensive line is responsible for. The Niners' offense and run game goes through one thing, and that has to be the outside zone. The offense really revolves around putting the defense in conflicts, whether it be a horizontal conflict of them deciding which way they're going to scrape, or if they're going to shoot the inside. Basically, the Niners' outside zone scheme is what drives defensive coordinators bonkers. On these plays, it becomes clear that you need an offensive line who's well conditioned, because you'll often see the offensive linemen running down the field and pulling behind the line of scrimmage. The Niners also have plenty of counters to go off this outside zone philosophy, whether it be running back to the opposite side or using the inside zone toss. So all these counters effectively do one thing, and that's put more stress on the defense, alleviating the stress that's put on the offensive line. So now that we understand how some of the stress is alleviated in the run game, we can examine how the same stress is alleviated through the pass game for the offensive line utilizing similar concepts. One of the most important things about Kyle Shanahan's offense moving into the passing game concepts is the ability to get the ball in playmakers' hands. A way in which Kyle Shanahan does this to also challenge the defense is by making his pass plays look very similar to his run plays. This means Kyle Shanahan's passing offense relies heavily on play action passes. However, there are times where Kyle Shanahan just needs to line back and pass. In this case, Shanahan usually attacks the middle of the field and underneath coverages. This means the quarterback needs to get the ball out of his hands quickly, resulting in the offensive line not needing to hold on to their blocks as much as maybe a more deep down the field passing offense like the Arizona Cardinals. So now that we understand Chris Foerster and the Niners' offensive philosophies a little bit more deeply, we can examine the type of players that may have success on this type of system. The first thing that must be said is any player that has success on the Niners will need to be extremely smart. Kyle Shanahan's offense is known for being one of the most complex. Whether you're an offensive lineman or running back, you definitely need a good head on your shoulders to be successful in Shanahan's offense. Furthermore, I'd say athleticism and the ability to pull is fundamental when selecting offensive linemen for San Francisco. Wall size is nice. It appears they value the ability to move a whole lot more, which makes sense because of the foundational core philosophies we laid out previously. In this video, we tried to examine a whole lot about the 49ers offensive line in a short period of time. We did this by primarily examining Chris Foerster's background up to this point, and furthermore, examining the Niners' philosophy when it comes to their offensive side of the ball. But this is only the beginning, because as we all know, players are the people to actually win games. So while having a great coaching philosophy and having great coaches is nice, it means nothing if your offensive lineman simply can't play. In the following videos in this series, I hope to go through each position: left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, and right tackle, mainly focusing on the right side of the offensive line to start. So if this is something that you guys are interested in, make sure to go ahead and catch those upcoming videos. It would also mean a ton if you liked and subscribed.